I always say when we're about to do an early sing through, please make some loud mistakes, because that's how we learn and that's how we, improve. So it's a constant reiteration of this is a safe place.
Welcome to Leading Notes, where I talk with musicians who are leading the revitalisation of social health in our communities. I'm your host, Melissa Forbes. Today's guest is Jane York. Jane is the founder of contemporary community choir Just Holler, workshop project Big Feminist Sing, and the ukulele group Strumming Singers. Her previous music leadership roles span universities, health and arts organisations, and community centres, and she's also a regular guest conductor for many choirs. An experienced festival choir leader and workshop facilitator, Jane has led pop-up singing events in regional and metro Victoria, regional Queensland, and all over the world online with her lunchtime live sing-alongs during Melbourne's lockdowns. She can be found leading singing at protests and fundraisers, including the Sing for Equality Project, Extinction Rebellion, Reclaim the Night, International Women's Day events, Mums for Palestine, 16 Days of Activism, and as part of the Climate Choir Plus collective. Jane York, welcome to Leading Notes.
Hi, Melissa. I'm really happy to be here. Sorry for that long list of organisations.
You're a busy lady.
Well,
Why is... I'm going to start with a really big question.
Okay.
You ready for it?
Oh, I'm ready. Let's go.
Why is community important, Jane?
It is a big question, isn't it? I mean, we all live in community all the time. That's how we gather and have always gathered. I think thinking about community music, though, certainly in kind of our modern Western capitalist, individualist kind of world that you and I live in, we've been encouraged to, go on our own and do things on our own as much as possible. And life's too hard to do that. I think if we're lucky enough to be a part of communities, multiple, life's just so much more rich and easy to get through. And there's so many ways to organise within communities, but my favourite way is through music. I think it's beautiful to get together with people and make music just because it is that international language. It crosses religion, culture, language barriers, socioeconomic status. It's just my favourite way of being in community with people, and I feel grateful to be a part of multiple music communities.
And in your bio, we talked about you running those online singing sessions during lockdown. Yeah. And that was a time when we were kind of starkly reminded of why we need other people in our lives. I'm wondering whether we've already forgotten that. That was only like 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
And it was it was so obvious at the time that it was just really odd and alienating, obviously, to be alone and not around other people. But we have reverted to type again, where we're kind of back just doing our own thing and disconnected from each other. And part of why I'm really wanting to do this whole series is to kind of highlight the fact that we were never meant to live this way. What do you think?
I completely agree. And it's interesting bringing up particularly that first year of COVID and lockdowns. We saw really beautiful examples of communities showing up for one another as things were challenging. And there really was that feeling of we're all in this together. Certainly in my music communities, people were reaching out to one another through social media, just one-on-one. We were having Zooms. I'm running live streams during the day and on Friday nights. And it was a really important thing to stay part of those communities to sort of, for our well-being. And, we've stepped away from that so dramatically, but it's not because we don't value those spaces. I think structurally it's been really, really hard. Things are much more challenging now due to all these external and systemic pressures, cost of living and pressures to, work harder. No one's thriving right now. I think everything's set up. We're all in survival mode, and it's probably where we need communities the most. But it's really hard when people are just struggling to keep their nose above water in all aspects of their life. So I think certainly this year we've seen a lot of people coming to community music who never have participated in the past. A lot of other choir leaders and band leaders have had big enrolments at the beginning of this year. So I think there's definitely people seeking a bit more community beyond their friendship circles, their workplaces and their families.
Is your sense that those people are being kind of driven back into community because they are feeling extra pressure around, cost of living, putting a roof over their heads, all that kind of stuff? Is that your general sense?
I think the people that I speak to, it's really about taking care of their well-being, their mental health, their social health, all those things. If you're not having many outlet valves in your week, you may not be someone who goes to the gym, you may not be someone who has any practices beyond domestic life and work life, then people are realizing, hey, I just need something for me that's playful, that's joyful, that is connecting with other people as well, that isn't a solo activity, because people are feeling quite isolated. So come to community music, because we absolutely have these beautiful communities that you can come and be a part of, I think people are realizing that.
Yeah, absolutely. You describe community music as an act of play, Jane. So how much does your particular singing leadership style rely on playfulness and having fun?
Oh, it's essential, I think. I don't want to make music with someone who's very intense and serious and, a little bit scary, I think a lot of people have had, many years ago now, but a lot of people have had an experience in a musical setting. Perhaps it's in a classroom at school or university or, elsewhere in a private lesson with a bit of a scary music teacher, people tell me about this. And that does a lot to how people feel about their capacity to participate in music. It's knocks down your confidence, and music should always be playful, even when you're doing it at a very high level, but particularly if you're very new to making music, because we relax when we're in play mode. It's the opposite of fight or flight, it's the opposite of a stressed state. We need to be relaxed. It's vulnerable. When we're playing, the moment's full of possibility. It's really joyful. It can be really silly, but it's not necessarily silly. Sometimes we're dealing with musical repertoire that perhaps the theme is quite heavy, but we're approaching it from a space of play that allows us to sort of just be in that moment and respond. Playfulness is about responding to one another. And when we're singing or playing in an ensemble, it's all about listening and responding. So it's essential. And as a leader, it's about modeling that. So vulnerability is a big part of that modeling. So I'm letting people know that it's okay to not get things right. It's okay to not take yourself too seriously. It's okay to make mistakes. This is just a playful space, right? And trying to set that space up is hugely important, I think, to people's ability to participate. If they've been in an environment previous that is about right and wrong, correct or incorrect, fear, punishment or reward, all those things where it's really binary. And actually where the joy of music happens is in that middle bit, which is just the process and the play. So
a couple of things you've kind of reminded me of there is in positive psychology, they talk about the broaden and build theory, which is experiencing positive emotions actually opens up the possibilities, which is exactly what you said. So when we're feeling relaxed and happy, we have more ideas. We're able to kind of take a wider range of action. But when we're experiencing negative emotions, things become very narrow, the possibilities are very limited, and it's hard to you feel kind of constrained and trapped. So your approach to kind of really build those positive emotions is in line with some really good kind of psychological research. The other thing I wanted to pick up on was in terms of the leader. So oftentimes we'll have leaders who are quite musically sophisticated, right? But they use self-deprecation and they use humour to kind of humanise themselves in the face of a group of people who may be amateur or, have no musical experience. And I think that's a real skill too, isn't it, to kind of level the playing field, if you like, so that everybody's able to play together. And there's not this kind of us versus them, which can often happen, like you said, in that kind of binary of more traditional ways of engaging with music. And I'm not saying that, that's necessarily a bad thing either. It has its place, perhaps. But, just kind of leveling the playing field so everybody feels welcome and able to be themselves.
Yeah, I'm not very interested in that old-fashioned dynamic of the expert and the student. I hope that my groups feel like we're just on a journey together. I've just got a few of the extra tools to help us all get to where we want to be, which is learning a song. And I hope that they understand by the end of our first session together that I'm just a big dork and that I'm not some sort of professional expert. I'm a dork who knows the notes, and we're just kind of going on it. And I've got some ideas and some techniques, but I try to remain open to and receptive to them and their needs and what they're telling me about what they need, because it is just a journey. We walk into the room, it's an empty room, nothing's there, nothing's been created, and it is that collective journey together of, learning these parts, learning this song, building that sound together, and it's really complicated and interesting, that journey, and it needs to be that back and forth. So I'm just the guide facilitating that rather than the expert. That's how I feel about it.
The musical dork taking them on a journey.
Absolutely musical, and I love music, and that's the thing I want to share. That's the impression I want to leave, is just my deep love of the music that I'm teaching them, and my love of singing as opposed to my expertise at singing. And I think that's an important difference for me.
Let's dig into some of those ideas and techniques that you use. You talk about depressurising the music making experience and, allowing space for all sorts of different ways to engage with it. What are some of the specific things that you use to create this sense of safety whilst also perhaps challenging people a little bit musically? That's a really interesting balance to try to strike, isn't it?
Yes. That's the goal. That's the thing that's always in, I think, all community leaders as we go along, and I don't think we ever get it perfect. But a few things, I guess, that help is welcoming people as they come in. Obviously, really basic stuff, whether you're welcoming them or you've got a volunteer with the group. Someone's making eye contact, saying hello, hi, so they feel like they're supposed to be in the room, for starters.
And that sounds like a real no-brainer, but there have been so many music rehearsals when I've walked in and nobody's acknowledged my presence, and you just, from the outset, you feel like you don't belong.
And the worst part is when someone's late. There's always a couple of people who are late in a community setting. So when someone's late, often they'll come in the room looking a little sheepish or a little embarrassed. They're running late, and that's really important to catch their eye, even if you're mid singing something. But just make eye contact and kind of smile at them to let them know, hey, it's all good. You're welcome. Come join us. It's fine. And these are values that I've learned from fantastic other facilitators. My mentors of mine over the years, and it's a simple thing, but it's massive. And I also, I'm a big fan of a very silly warm-up song. I actually make fun of my Queensland accent because I teach predominantly in Victoria. I do have a warm-up that's explicitly about making fun of my nasal accent that I worked very hard to lose, because I grew up very close to you, Melissa, in southeast Queensland. So we do a lot of nasal kind of exercises, and it's all about people laughing and singing at the same time. And as soon as people are sort of giggling, we're in a good place to start. But I did something recently that, maybe was not a great idea, but I decided to teach TikTok dances for 6 weeks earlier this year. And I have no business teaching dancing at my age, particularly a TikTok dance. So of course I was terrible at it, but we had a good laugh, so people are moving their bodies, we're just having a laugh, very silly way to start the session. So starting from a place of kind of just play, silliness, and then we can move into challenging ourselves. So then once I'm asking someone to step out of their comfort zone in relation to singing something or learning something new, I've already modeled that I'm quite willing to step out of my comfort zone, and I'm terrible at it and nothing bad happened. The floor didn't open up. I always say when we're about to do an early sing through, please make some loud mistakes, because that's how we learn and that's how we, improve. So it's a constant reiteration of this is a safe place to just be learning and not perfect yet. And we only learn through being bad at something multiple times and then we improve. So,
and you're encouraging people to be bad or make mistakes and be proud of it.
Yeah, great. It means you're having a go. That means you're participating. If I can get someone to sing loudly and sing the wrong thing, amazing. That means they're participating. The hardest thing is getting people to open their mouth, because people who are really feeling unsafe are not making a sound. So participation is the goal, and then we can work towards, creating something that sounds beautiful collectively, or maybe not. Maybe we never get there, and that's okay.
Is there anything subtle that you can do for people like that who are really reluctant and perhaps quite frightened?
Yeah, there's lots of things. So as a leader, it's really hard to be inside someone's head, particularly if they're new to a group or it's a one-off workshop and you don't actually know them personally or know anything about what's going on for them. My goal, if people have come through the door and they're sitting in the circle or in the group, that's already massive. So I'm never going to push someone too much. But, you can say things like, let's try it again. And I really want to hear everyone's voices because you all sound so fantastic. So, or let's sing it 50% louder than we just were. Or there's just little invitations to sort of go, I'm listening to you and your voice matters to me, because who knows what's happening internally in that person's mind and body. And they may not pick me up on that invitation, but there's invitations that can be made rather than just saying, I see you, you're not singing, join in. That's what a horrific thing for that person to hear in that moment. That's going to be doing the opposite. So it's really, I actually really want to hear your voice, so let's put it in the mix. Sometimes over time it can be about putting them next to a strong singer, of course. There's all those sorts of techniques. Someone who they can really listen to and tune in if they're sort of struggling to pick up the melody or their part. But there's all sorts of encouragement, and sometimes it's just time as well. They feel more confident after being in that setting over a longer period of time. It just depends on the person.
So what about when you're teaching a new song, for example? What are some of the techniques that you use to help people feel willing to give things a go, particularly if you're perhaps tackling a harmony or something like that?
Yeah, there's so many different scenarios. I think firstly, picking the right material for the group is crucial. So that's a big part of what I do. Is I arrange a lot of contemporary pop music, and I try my hardest to pick something that is going to be, firstly, the group's going to love. So that's the first thing. If they love the song, they're way more likely to have a go at a harmony or a melody because they're really keen. It's always pushing things uphill more if you introduce a song, and every community music leader's had this, you're really excited, and then it lands like a lead balloon. And this happens sometimes if you do it long enough. So really having a great song that, even if it's completely unfamiliar to them, you really love, and you can kind of introduce it in a way where you're sharing why you love it, and hoping they will get there also after they hear the harmonies or hear that beautiful song you want to share. But because I teach a lot of pop music, often they're already familiar, or at least half the group are kind of familiar, so there might be some enthusiasm. And people who are really struggling with the harmony, then great, they can go and sing the melody of that song. And those who want to have a go at the harmony, excellent. And I think so it's about picking something that's going to be, just a little bit challenging for those who need to challenge, and accessible for those who need to just sort of stay in that melody space. I teach some challenging stuff sometimes too. I really like writing intricate a cappella arrangements of music, but I know how long it's going to take to learn that. So I try not to, and that's with a lot of experience nowadays. I'll try not to bring a piece that is a 10-week learn to a 4-week season, because it's just setting people up for failure. They're not going to really be able to grasp it in that time. So just setting a little bit of a challenge beyond current capacity tends to work out, and people feel like they've really achieved something and feel really proud of themselves, at the end of that.
What about performance? Are there special things you need to do there for some people to help them move into that mindset that they can actually get up in front of a bunch of strangers and do this?
Yeah, performance with community choirs is really challenging, and I have a complex relationship to it, having had to lead groups in lots of different settings over the years. In my experience, the vast majority of performance opportunities that are offered to community choirs that you're not creating yourself are often really inappropriate for one reason or another, and the person inviting doesn't understand how complex it is getting a group of non-professionals to perform, for them to have a good time, for them to be able to hear each other, to sound good, to have the skills to really offer a performance. It's a lot going on, and I've been part of so many experiences that I just think, I'm not sure this was worth the effort for all of us to get here, at the end of it. And I always, before COVID and things got a bit different, I'd always think that last rehearsal before the gig was the best experience for people, because they've worked really hard to learn a song, they're sounding as good as they can, but the pressure of the actual performance wasn't there. As soon as as you know, Melissa, the minute there's a microphone involved, choirs are impossible to mic. Some sound person who's never mic'd a choir doesn't know what they do. It's just fraught.
Yeah.
And while, I've certainly been a part of some fantastic experiences, the majority have been kind of just more stressful than joyful. And having had all those experiences, my choir, Just Holler, we actually don't do gigs like that anymore at all. We have a model where we do a 4 or 6 week season, and at the end of it we have something called show and tell. So it's very clear that this isn't a polished performance on a big stage with lights and mics, and it's dark and you can't see your audience, and you're supposed to perform with perhaps alongside professional musicians, and you watch them and you go, oh God, we're not like that, all those things. So the show and tell model we're doing currently, it's very relaxed. We just invite friends and family in. We get them to sing with us. There's some, warm-ups together. There's a sing-along at the end. And it's in the same location we rehearse in, so it's comfortable for people. There's no lights shining in their face. We do a bit of decorating, but it feels very familiar for them, which is good. There's no microphones. And everyone has been so delightful because people feel comfortable and safe. So you see people, instead of going into their shells, coming out of their shells in that setting and performing for them, sharing what we've been doing with their family and friends. And I love being a part of that way more than being on stage at Hamer Hall and, other things that we've done, because it feels very connected, and it is about those really just joyful, positive singing experiences. And they sound so much better at their show and tells because of all those things. So, yeah, I have much respect for all the community choir and band leaders still putting their people on big stages. It's really hard.
Yeah, that show and tell model, though, it really gives the participants in these groups a chance to experience a sense of accomplishment and like that they've really learnt something, without the pressure of having to be artificially plonked on a stage with a spotlight. And, you're right to point out the lighting situation, because looking into an audience where you can't see them and you're blinded by lights is actually quite a confronting experience. Even, something that I kind of never really got used to. It's alienating. Again, I'm using that word because you just feel like you're under a microscope, but you can't see who's looking at you.
It's really artificial. It's really strange.
It is. When you think about it, it's actually really weird. But I think that it's really important for people in community music groups to feel like, hey, I'm actually getting better at this thing, and we actually sound pretty good.
I love that. It's always, I love when the response, you know, particularly someone will video on their phone the show and tell, and then someone's like, "Oh, we sound really good," and they're surprised. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know. I've been listening to you for 6 weeks. I know you sounded good.
Yeah.
But, you know, we don't get the full sound in the choir. If you're standing in the, you know, midsection or with the altos, you might not have really got a sense of the whole piece. And then you see a video and go, oh, that was good. And it's like, I love that, because that really builds up people's confidence in the group. I just, you know, we forget that sometimes with that community group, if you're getting them on a stage, for some of those people, it might be the first time they've ever stood on a stage, ever sung with a microphone, ever had lights in their face. So at that point, that's all they're thinking about. They're like, oh God, there's lights, oh, there's microphone. And they're not thinking about the piece and being in their body, right? And so I do love when that surprise and joy and confidence comes out of a relaxed sharing setting. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
Even calling it show and tell, though, you know, we all had show and tell at school, and it was something that you looked forward to and you got really excited about.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Look what we've been doing. It's also very porous, the relationship between, you know, the performer and the audience is a bit more porous in that idea of show and tell rather than, you know, being on a stage. It's very...
More interactive and more of a conversation.
Exactly, yeah.
Speaking of conversation, language is really important in this kind of work. Can you give me some specific examples of the types of choices you make in the words that you're using with your groups? Because it really matters, doesn't it? You know, depending on the words we use, we can turn people off, or we can really actually draw them in.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a good friend who works in comms and marketing, and I joke that I've become a comms amateur just from doing events and running programs and groups for so long. The comms are so important. The first experience of a group for a lot of people is an email or an ad or a socials post about that workshop or that group or that program or event. And it tells us a lot about what we might experience. And if it's written poorly, it doesn't grab people and it doesn't tell them, hey, you're welcome here. And I think where we go wrong a lot of the time with community events and community arts settings is people are trying to apply professional language to a group of community amateur, musicians, and it just doesn't set up the expectations correctly about what's going to happen, and it might make people think, oh, well, I'm not part of that. That looks very professional. It's like, no, this is supposed to be relaxed and inviting. It needs to be really clear that this is for anybody and everybody if it is. I like to have something of the music you're going to play in there too. I get, as a participant, get anxious if there's no indication or hint of what we'll be playing, because that matters to me. You know, I'm like, well, what are we going to do here? I like to also get a sense of the politics of the event or the group. That's really important particularly for some communities. Am I going to be welcome here? Like, who is here? And so keeping things very vague and high level is actually not inviting, I think. I think specificity is really important. This group's for beginners. We're going to sing for 90 minutes. You don't need to read sheet music, or you do. Setting up all those expectations is really makes an event more accessible for people, because they have those questions answered without having to reach out. And I think there's a lot of gendered language as well in, sort of traditional singing. Obviously, around parts is one aspect. There's sort of this assumption that cis men are going to sing the tenor and bass, and, cis women are singing da-da-da. And I try and sort of soften all of that as much as I can in my teaching. It's never an assumption of someone's gender is going to sing that part. I try and, when it's my arrangements, sometimes I'll set high, medium, low for parts, so that it's not, it's just sort of That's about accessibility of music knowledge as well, because not everyone knows if they're a tenor or an alto. I have no idea. What does that mean? Also, sometimes I'll play around and put if we're doing a pop song, the names of the band members on the parts, So we did a boy band season, which is inherently pretty gendered, but had the names of the Take That members on the parts rather than, tenor and bass. So I think there's that language in the invitation, and then there's language in the session, of course. So I really try not to use any music theory language if I can, unless I'm going to explain it. So if I talk about what a coda is, then I'm going to talk about what a coda is, what it does, So that's a little time travel sign, and it's going to take, music, we go from here to here. And it's quite easy to not talk in music theory language. There's other ways to explain absolutely every concept. We don't need to speak Italian to understand music. So that's part of the accessibility, is the language we use in the session. Also the language, we touched on it before, but the language of removing like overly critical language or judgmental language or like correct or incorrect, just sort of softening all that language is I try to do. Some of my groups might talk about my eyebrows, but I don't have a lot of control over that. So they've sung a wrong note. Sometimes my eyebrows will tell them. But I'm working on keeping a neutral eyebrow.
Getting better at your poker face.
always with love, but yeah. So yeah, language is super important. It keeps people included or excluded, and some people don't know that that's even having the impact. But yeah.
I mean, for musicians who aren't used to working with community groups, it might come as a surprise that some of that language that we become so steeped in, the theoretical language, you take it for granted and you think that people will know what it is, when of course then they're not going to have any clue, what a coda is, and kind of describing it as time traveling is brilliant, just translating it in a way that people can relate to.
I think with singing as well, there's a lot of technical language around how to sing, and placement and voice and how we use it that trained singers would use. It's completely irrelevant to someone who's just coming for fun and has never studied singing. So I say all sorts of weird stuff. I wish someone would write down the weird stuff I've said, because I'm weird. Like, people are always, the group's just laughing at me. I'm trying to get them to do something physically with the instruction, but it's my favourite one is sort of to get people to just sort of raise their palate a little bit, pretend that someone's farted in the lift next to you and they're a stranger. So it's not a full smile, it's just a half kind of smile with your lips still closed. And so I say all this really out of pocket stuff just to try and get people to hold their face or use their, body in a different way when they're singing.
Is that your country Warwick upbringing coming out?
Oh, sure. We can blame that.
What brings you satisfaction in doing this work? For you personally, what brings you satisfaction?
So many things. It's beautiful work to do. Everyone's happy to see me when we're going into a session, unlike some professions. Or,
that's nice, isn't it?
Because they're there to sing. They're excited. They're there to do, No, I mean, there's multiple things. I'd say I really love when someone comes to a session and either it's their first interaction with group singing or it's a rediscovery after a long time, So perhaps it's very common for people to sing in choir and at school and even uni perhaps. And then it's been 30 years and they haven't done any group singing and they loved it and they've come back to it and they're like, oh, why haven't I been doing this for the last 30 years? I love it. And it's like, well, welcome back, So that's always a beautiful sort of conversation to have with people. And I think I love going back to the, first question we talked about communities. I love seeing the communities that I've helped cultivate and been a part of taking care of each other, having relationships outside of, rehearsals, and for that community to be really porous too at the edges and sort of bringing more people in. And it's something kind of beyond me at that point, very much so. And that's a beautiful thing to see. Just being able to sort of facilitate that is my favourite part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a, I love that word generative, it's really creating something. It's creating communities, it's creating relationships, it's giving people access to resources that they didn't have.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they did, but they, it's just about giving people permission to, and something to sort of gather around too, right? It's like we're gathering around music and our love of singing and our love of music, but it's much bigger than that. It's a beautiful thing, and it's delicate and hard. And I'm I don't want to give the impression that it just happens beautifully and easily, and there's never any bumps or difficult patches or times, because being in community and kind of being in a leadership position in communities is, there's challenges that come up, especially over a long period of time, with, personalities and relationships. It's challenging, but so fantastic and worth it.
Dealing with human beings is complex.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How has this work changed you at all, if it has at all?
Oh my God. Of course it has. You can't do this work and it doesn't change you. I think I get all the benefits that the participants get in a session. It's not like I'm just providing I'm not a dentist doing a root canal and that person gets a root canal and I'm just, nothing's happened to me. I'm experiencing exactly the thing that everybody else is experiencing. So if I'm facilitating a joyful moment where everyone's locked in and enjoying singing a song, I am experiencing that same joy of being in that space. So it's, it's the somatic healing that we all experience. It's that same connection, that same meditation, being in that play, and I have to, obviously, there's extra elements of focus and responsibility because I'm leading it, but I'm still in that room and being part of that, every time. And it's transformative. It can't not transform you. And I think the biggest lesson from doing this for 15 years is the bravery, like the self-belief in my own bravery, because it is quite daunting when you start doing this, standing in front of everybody, and it's like, oh God, it's on you to get this going. So that you just have to be brave and start. And it's one of those things that you can't learn from a book. You can only learn by doing it, ultimately. So, and finding your own way and style and techniques that work for you. And so taking those first steps to start, there's always a bit of a bravery part of it and courage. And so I think that I've built up my courage enormously doing this work, and that applies to every aspect of my life. I know what's possible. A group of humans can walk into a room and not know each other and not know some music, and we all learn it together and create this beautiful thing and these beautiful moments. So that sort of trust in possibility is a powerful, it's not an intellectual lesson, it's a physical lesson that we've all learnt together. And just I think learning how important community is as well is sort of a really powerful lesson that's been amazing. I feel really grateful to do this strange, amazing work.
Have there been any surprises along the way? Anything caught you off guard?
Oh God, all the time. I think my understanding of the voice to our emotion and our well-being, it's like, and our identity is like really complex and powerful. And I've been witness to, or I have experienced so many moments of like release or just opening up for people. And, we can process really big stuff when we're singing. We have to open ourselves up participate, and some stuff can come out for people. It's so normal for people, as you know, Melissa, to cry in a singing session. Like if you have enough people together, someone's going to have a cry, and it's a beautiful thing. It's not disruptive. It's most of the time it's all part of it, because they're actually letting something go, or they're feeling a big feeling. It can be of joy and beauty. It's not necessarily based in grief or sorrow, but the way the voice, the sound changes, the strength, the vulnerability, depending on our lived experiences, depending on what we're going through. Like, it is really beautiful to understand that and see it in all these contexts from all these different humans going through different stuff. I think that's a really unique experience to singing that we don't necessarily get with instruments. Not that it's competition, but and also there's a real beauty in amateur singers, community singers, that we don't always hear with a trained professional, because they've got the technique to sort of move beyond some of those moments. And so there is a real beauty in a vulnerability or an earnest moment from someone who's really singing from a deep place of emotion, that I've certainly seen time and time again in those community settings.
Kim Dillon, who's an amazing musician and community choir leader in Victoria, talks about it. The phrase she used was the sound of humanity. And she loves the rough edges, all of the different timbres, and, it might be a bit clashy here and there. It's not that trained kind of really smooth, almost homogenous sound. It's like, no, every voice, you can almost discern every voice, and each person's bringing their own self to the sound. And I love that phrase, the sound of humanity, because it values every voice, but then the collective is just something so special. And when you experience that, the tears will flow.
Absolutely. I mean, and Kim is one of my favourite conductors, certainly here in Victoria. She's just phenomenal. And the trust her groups have in her is, pretty special. And that's a beautiful way to phrase it. I heard Stephen Taberner, another very famous conductor, talk about a near life experience when he was talking about singing in harmony, and I often think of that phrase as well. I think it's quite perfect for what we're trying to do.
I think it is too, because it's as close to life that you can get,
Yeah, absolutely. We've ended very philosophically.
Well, speaking of being philosophical, if you had your time over again, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
My 18-year-old self?
Oh, well, your younger self.
Yeah.
When we were young and silly, Jane.
I'm still pretty silly. I'm just old and silly now. I think, when I was at uni and studying music, I was hell-bent on being a music journalist, which I was at the time. And I think I had an idea that music making wasn't for me, because you had to either be in the yeahs or or it wasn't for you. And it's that exact kind of binary thinking of you're either a professional with this enormous talent and something to say, or it's not. You shouldn't bother. And so I think I'd probably just say, like, it's actually for everybody. And you should get involved with it because it brings you a lot of joy.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the message from my younger self is, just do what you love doing. Get involved. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be perfect at it. It doesn't have to be your career. It can just be for joy.
There you go. Good enough reason as any.
Absolutely.
Okay, what song makes you feel truly alive, Jane York?
Oh, my goodness. That's the hardest question you've asked.
It's a shocker, isn't it, really?
It's too many right in this moment.
Yes.
If I was going to turn a song on really, really loudly and sort of dance around in my house to it, just to sort of feel very good, it'd probably be Pink Pony Club by Chapel Roan. That would definitely bring the vibes up. So I'll go with that one.
Love it. Jane York, thank you for making music that matters and for being my guest today on Leading Notes.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Melissa. It was a pleasure.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make sure to leave a review. I acknowledge that this podcast is produced on the lands of the Gayabal and Jarowair peoples of the Toowoomba region, and I pay my respect to all elders. Mark Schultes produced the original music for this podcast. Thanks for listening. Now go make music that matters.